Hey guys, what's up? It's iFlynn here, and welcome to episode 8 of my From Zero playthrough for Warframe. Now, I started recording this video, but I forgot to start recording the audio, so I was blabbering and it wasn't recording the audio, and I killed Frost, and they opened up 2 messages because one of you super nice people gifted me Warframe slots and weapon slots, even though I didn't want those to be gifted to me, but it's alright. You asked for a shout out to your YouTube channel, Lassio, I think, but you didn't give me a YouTube channel name anyway, so thank you to Lassio2 for the gifts, but I went ahead and I turned off gifting because I don't want you guys to be, using your platinum on me, gifting me slots and stuff like that, because the whole point in this is to sort of show you guys how to do that on your own and what I would do going through an account, again, with the knowledge that I do have. So, I wanted to touch a little bit on the Prospector, because one of the questions that I brought up in the previous video was what do I think about the newer player experience, and I was about to comment on it before I jumped into the Prospector fight, and it kind of made me realize, like, oh, this could actually be pretty difficult if a player doesn't know what they're doing, right? Because the Prospector was surprisingly difficult for me to take down. So if you go to the Mars Junction and we try to kill him, if I didn't know that I could boost up my damage by shooting for electric shields, if I choose Vault, then I probably wouldn't have killed this guy. So let's see. So check this out. He's going to run here and he's going to use Avalanche or Snow Globe, right? So he'll do either of the two. If you get close to him, he'll use Avalanche. And then if you hide behind cover of any form, he's going to use Ice Wave, and that's going to slow you down. So you really don't want him to get at your health at all, especially if you don't have Vitality upgraded and you're doing this at a low level. You can shoot the Snow Globe to destroy it and take it away, but it's going to eat up a lot of your ammo, so make sure to invest in this duration, and eventually he's going to run back over here, and then he's going to go back to the side and keep on casting abilities at you. You don't want to be up close to him whenever he's using Avalanche or anything like that, and you just want to keep on firing through your electric shields and then aiming for the heads, or his head, sorry, to take him down by doing this, and then maybe moving around a little bit to boost up your damage a little bit because of Volt's passive, and then that's going to make it a lot easier on you. But you want to make him sort of stay still by keeping your distance and just aiming for the head and taking him down. Now, if that doesn't work out, what I'd recommend doing is upgrade your Hornet Strike and then use your secondary weapon and just use that to kill him, because either the Kunai or the Leto, they're both going to proc slash procs, and then they're gonna take him down. So if you were completely new to this game and you jumped in here playing as Vault or Mag, just hopping around doing whatever, you would probably die, because Frost's armor is pretty high and he's got pretty high health as well. And it was kind of a slap in the face to me whenever I did that for the first time. So how I did it just there, just camping behind your electric shields and letting him go to the front of the junction, is the best way to do that. I don't want Nora to talk. Don't do it. Don't do it. Bye-bye, Nora. But that's the best way to do it. But if you're a newer player and you didn't know the things that I know, then I can see you struggling. Like, you'd probably go out of your way to level yourself up a little bit more before you take that on, and that's perfectly okay. But the game really has to do a better job of explaining its mechanics to you in some way, shape, or form, or else people are just going to be completely turned off, unless they are like you and I, where they go out of their way to research stuff about the game. But the thing with that is, I remember in the no-clip interview with the developers that they said it doesn't matter how much they went back and they changed up the start of the game, the retention stayed the same. Like, if a player wasn't going to play a Warframe, they just weren't going to play a Warframe. Wasn't destined to happen. They just wouldn't play it. They would just fall off. But if a player was interested in Warframe and they were interested in learning, they would continue playing. I would maybe argue that that's because the beginning of the game was never done right. I might be crazy for saying that, but like, if this game just had a full-fledged hand-holding tutorial at the very beginning where, it required you to maybe use a broken arsenal to equip Serration and broken versions of elemental mods to increase your damage, and it kind of explained it a little bit with like a a UI overlay, like if you were to do this, right, and it was just like a big tutorial on this screen here that it was like, elemental damage does this, blah, 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 blah. Like literally all they have to do is take the stuff from the codex and then throw it on a screen like this that just force pops up at the beginning of the game that you could go back and replay the tutorial. I think that would increase the retention of players a shit ton. You know, might just be me. Maybe just me. But then the other caveat to that, and this is what annoys me the most about DE, is whenever they talk about reworking stuff, right? They're like, Damage 3.0. Before Korra was released, Damage 3.0. Damage 3.0, like a little test stuff that comes out. And then people are like, no, we don't like that. And then DE are like, okay, we won't do that. And then it's like, but it's still in the works, and we're going to try it with Railjack. So we're going to see how it works with Railjack, I guess. And if it's good there, it'll probably be implemented into the full game, which would require even more guides and even more explaining. And then there's probably going to be problems with that as well. And then it's just going to kind of go full circle again. But who knows? Like, it's so mind-boggling the amount of going around in circles DE does in regards to core systems within Warframe and the new player experience, right? Because I think that the new player experience definitely needs to be looked at, and DE just have to go out of their way to make a proper prologue with a proper tutorial. And I believe that they are redoing the newer player experience this year, but we'll see how that goes. I'm a little bit convinced that it's just going to be like world building, kind of like Fortuna was, right? Like Fortuna was a great update, don't get me wrong. There was a lot of effort and detail put into it, but like it was just a world building update. It was the builds or further emphasize the atmosphere, set the tone for Warframe. You know, if you're a newer player and you were jumping in the Warframe and the first two planets you go to, here's Cetus and here's this colony and they're doing this thing, you'd think it's so cool. And then you move on to Venus and like, here's this other colony and you got to do this for them and that for them and yada, yada, yada. You know, you'd think that that's super awesome. It's just to build up the world of Warframe and really help out that newer player. So I think that the newer player experience is something that they are continually working on to maybe increase retention, but I think that what really needs to be done to keep players around is the core mechanics of the game explained to a degree that is understandable. You know, if it just something as simple as the Lotus saying, yo, elemental damage is going to increase your total damage output. Leveling up your weapons doesn't actually increase the amount of damage you deal. You got to use mods for that. You know, like if that was just in the game in some way, shape, or form, then that would be fantastic, you know. I still do think that they should go down the route of having the weapons damage increase with the level. You know, just completely making Suration a mod that isn't needed, and the damage of the weapon scales up with the level of the weapon, right? I think that would make things a lot easier and understandable to players coming into the game. A lot more accessible, friendlier, right? I think that's what needs to happen. Because then, like, even if the person is building absolutely terrible, at least at the beginning of the game, they have a fighting chance if they just level their weapon up, you know? Because I feel like a lot of players are going to get to what I like to call gear check-like content, and because they don't know how to progress, they don't know how to, you know, level up their mods, they don't know what is best, they don't know how to farm endo or do this, that, or the other. I think that's where this game struggles the most, and I think that's where it loses most players, right? The depth of this game isn't something to be afraid of, because like I'm no mathematician, right? I got a D in my GCSE math, which is you know, your job entry level test that you have to take over here in the UK. And like I understand Warframe, percentage base, yada yada yada. You know, you throw on a mod, it's going to take a percentage of the base value and then add that on top. And then there's also additive, which is just flat out, you know, this is going to add this number to this value on your weapon or whatever. You know, that stuff is super straightforward, as long as you have somebody who sits down and tells you that. And you know, DE could definitely add maybe dialogue or just a little piece of text in the game that is forcefully popped up in front of the player that explains things to them, or they could go down the route of making a weapon's damage scale with their level, you know, instead of relying on the player to go out of their way, farm up a Serration mod from Everest on Earth, and then get the endo, and then put the endo into the mod and level it up, expending credits and also expending endo. You know, it's a little bit, it's convoluted, right? It's like the player wants to increase their damage, something really, really simple, but it's such a overly complicated thing to explain to a newer player. You say, oh yeah, man, you just got to use your endo. What is endo? At your modding station. Where's my modding station? To upgrade your mod, I can upgrade my mods. You know, that type of thing. So it's like, how do I increase your damage? Oh, you just level up your weapon. Easier, right? It's a lot easier to explain. You understand it. I don't know, might just be me, but I understand that this is a grinding game, but like I said, the grinding element can still be there, and it's taking away a little bit of the depth. Like, this game already has a shit ton of depth. You don't have to worry about depth being taken away if we remove the Serration mod, but I don't know. If I was a game designer, that's what I would do, you know. I studied game design whenever I was 16 through to 16 for 18? Yeah. And then I end up dropping out because, well, YouTube and Twitch is going good for me, right? So, got a little bit of experience. And of course, getting to watch the develop their game and stuff like that. And just, I guess, kind of being involved to a degree is really, really nice. You know, like, you learn a lot. You pick up on a lot of things. And then, obviously, being able to work with players who are getting into the game by making beginner guides for them, and people expressing to me, like, hey, man, I don't understand this, or I don't understand that, or why is this so complicated? Why is this so simple? Yada, yada, yada. Stuff like that. That's what really interests me, you know, just talking to individuals about their experience with the game, what they find complicated, what they find frustrating, what they find not straightforward, and, you know, stuff like that. I think that is the underlying issue. Things are a little bit too complicated for things that in most other games are so simple, you know, I guess you could say. But I think the other issue is the fact that where's the incentive to play with other players outside of, oh, hey, man, I need carried? You know, that's something that we talked about in a few episodes of the series. Well, one of the episodes of the series. I was like, well, there's no real reason for me to co-op with people. Where's the reason to play co-op with people at the beginning of this game? You know, like, you market it as a co-op game, but, like, do I want to experience this game with my friends? You know? That's the big question. Like, is it worth me saying to my friend, hey, man, you should come play a Warframe with me start to finish? You know? Where's that replay value that something like Borderlands has? Where you're like, yeah, let's play through Borderlands a couple years after we initially played it, because we want to relive the experience. You know? Warframe doesn't have that. You would like Warframe to have that. It would be nice if Warframe could have that. But that's not really the type of game that Warframe is, but it's the type of game that they're creating with the type of content that they've released recently, right? So instead of you having your own sort of Warframe experience, it's more so, here's the experience that we, DE, have made for you in the form of these open world environments and these quests and stuff like that. You know, it's a lot more narrative now than what it used to be. And if you're going to go down the narrative route with Warframe, I think you should just go to full way, which is kind of what they're doing with the open worlds and stuff. But, you know, until it gets added into the very beginning of the game, and then onto Mercury, and then on the Mars, and then on the Ceres, and then on to the Jupiter, and yada, yada, yada. Like, until you go to full way, like, I don't think it's something that players are going to take super duper seriously, right? They're not going to be like, oh yeah, this is such a cool universe to explore until everything is there. Because right now, like, it just feels like Plains of Eidolon and Orvalis are a little bit tacked on. It's like they're there just for the sake of being there. You know, it's like, oh, here, we are DE, we can make open worlds. And our game is also free. Come play, smile face. You know, that's kind of how it stands right now. And people aren't really taking the whole world building element of Orvalis and Plains of Eidolon existing into consideration when they're judging Warframe the experience, if you get what I mean by that. So I think I admire the effort to put DE into the likes of definitely the Orvalis and Fortuna, because the whole we live together, like that type of atmosphere that was created not only in the game but amongst the community with that song and the overall environment was so cool. You know, it's something that I don't think I've ever experienced before in my time gaming. You know, I was like, I've never felt more united with not only my audience but people who I play this game with, even though not everybody played it that much because the Fortuna update was a little bit lackluster. It was still awesome sitting waiting around for that update to come out. That this is gonna sound insane, but I think that was the most enjoyable part about the update, waiting for it to come out. Like, we were so excited for Fortuna that I think the hype just sort of killed the update in general. Like, it was built up to be this really fantastic thing by the community, and I guess to an extent DE. And it was just kind of like, when it came out, like, it wasn't a letdown when it came out by any means. It was still really, really cool, the environment and the atmosphere that DE created. That's what I'm saying. But in terms of gameplay, replay factor, it wasn't there. You know, it just wasn't there. And that was what I still am the most upset about, because it feels like, because of this whole community element that exists within Warframe, whenever they make like something like We All Live Together or Fortuna, where it's meant to unite the community and get everybody excited for this thing, it feels more and more to me like it's just really, really fucking good marketing. It's like you don't notice it, but that's what it is. It's really good marketing. And like, here, get excited for this thing that we're making, but it's not really anything too special. It was special, but it's also not special, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That's really how I feel about Fortuna and the Orvalis. Like, the atmospheric creation, or that side of it, is something to be admired, but the gameplay factor, replay factor, etc., wasn't there. Whenever it comes to the spiders and stuff like that, the spiders are really for me. I don't know how I feel about the spiders. There's not much reason for me to play them, I'll tell you that much. If there was more reason for me to do Prophet Taker, that would be fantastic. But there's not. I like the Prophet Taker fight. I'm not a fan of the Orb Mover fight. Orb Mover fight, narratively, is pretty cool because it tells a story. But it's more of those one and done boss fights, in my opinion, rather than something that I would enjoy playing over and over and over again. And then I think the other underlying issue is the fact that with the Orb Mover fight, it really doesn't put any emphasis on your gear at all. And I consider Warframe to be a co-op looter shooter in that sense, where your gear is supposed to matter, and it doesn't really matter what you play as long as you've invested into your character, like, you're gonna perform well. They nailed that aspect. Like, it doesn't matter what frame you're playing, but it like literally doesn't matter what frame you're playing, you know. So much so to the point, like, it just does not matter. Like, you could go in here as a basic Excalibur with just a Vitality mod on, and you could do this fight. That is a good and also a bad thing, because, like, I think one of the big complaints of Eidolons is the fact that, you know, it's too restrictive in the sense that it's like Trinity, Harrow, Volt, Chroma. So you can't play anything you want. You can't play the frame that you enjoy, you've invested time into. So then they took the other route of like, okay, well, we'll fix that. And we'll make it so that your Warframe choice literally doesn't matter. It should matter to a certain degree. There should be interesting setups and interactions between your Warframe and the boss, or the fight in general, and your Warframe and other Warframes in the lobby and stuff like that. You know, I think that should just be a standard staple thing that should be taken into consideration moving forward with Warframe's development. Like, it should always matter what Warframe you're playing to a certain degree, you know? Like, there should never be a point where you feel like your Warframe is useless, you know? And that can come down to a completely different topic of conversation, like Warframes that have a little bit of a lackluster kit, like let's say Vauban, for example. I would say Vauban, Korra, Atlas, etc. Those are frames that, to me, are very, very underwhelming whenever you compare them to the likes of Saren, Equinox, Mesa, Octavia, etc., etc. You know, those frames are absolutely ridiculous in the amount of things that they have, where you have something like Atlas and it's just kind of like, well, I can punch stuff and I can petrify stuff, and it's like, okay, cool. And oh look, I can also make these rocks fly around. It's like, oh really, you can do that? Nice. Well, everything is dead because I'm playing Saren forehead. So, you know, I don't know. I want my frame choice to matter, and I want, you know, the amount of time that I put into my kit, or the setup that I'm using, or the thought process behind my setup, to sort of be meaningful in some way, shape, or form. Because, like, back in tier 4 defense survival days, your Warframe choice mattered. You know, how you played your Warframe, how you had your Warframe set up, the mods that you had equipped, what your buddies were running, etc., etc., that mattered. You know, like, you would have interesting combinations like maybe Warcry, Valkyrie, Volt, Excalibur, Exalted Blade, you know, and seeing also a Necrus, because you need that for the 4 times CP and the Desecration. But you'd have an attack speed on the Excalibur. They'd be using a gas build or something. Why am I heading over this way? They have a gas build on, and then you'd just be shredding things, right? Like, anything that came into like a tunnel that you were camping in that T4 survival or T4 defense, if you're using Excalibur to hold these different angles, they would just die to the Exalted Blade, because, I mean, it was just a really, really good strat. The attack speed increased your DPS by a shit ton. You just able to spam, and it was really, really cool. You know, interesting combinations like that is what I miss from Warframe, which is no longer a thing. Even in Law of Retribution, you know, you could use a Vault with an Overload build. That's what it used to be called. I forget what it's called now. A discharge build that was modded for CCing, you know, and that could CC everything instead of having a Vauban. Because Vauban used to be really, really good in Law of Retribution 2. Or you could also have a Rhino using Rhino Stump, or Loki using Radial Disarm, or... You see what I mean? Like, there was reasons to use different frames, and now there's just not. Like, why? Well, what is with having all these Warframes if there's no reason for me to consider all these different Warframes? And that's something that I'm going to be looking out for whenever Wisp comes out. Like, why should I use Wisp over Octavia? Why should I use Wisp over Saren? Why should I use Wisp over Equinox? You know, what point of contention does this frame have, you know? What am I sacrificing from Equinox that is a lot better on Wisp, you know? Like, what does Wisp have that makes the sacrifice on Equinox worth it, I guess, is a better way of putting that. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm excited for Wisp to come out. I'm always excited for new Warframes to come into the game. Like, I think that's great, and that's what kind of keeps me hooked on Warframe. It's like there's always going to be this new interesting kit. But if the Warframe's not good, then that's a real bummer, you know? I hope Wisp is fantastic. It's definitely looking like the quality of Wisp is higher than that of Hildren's, I guess. But I'm cautiously optimistic for Wisp, I guess you could say. But I'm going to go ahead and extract now, because this is a long video, 24 minutes in, from what I can tell on my audio thing. And I feel like I covered some pretty good topics in that one. Yeah, I think so. I think so. And here we go. Cool. So our next goal is to move on to Phobos. Phobos is one of the easiest planets in the game. I don't even know if Phobos is a planet. Probably a moon. I don't think it is a planet. A moon or something. Because you're going to get that one guy in the comment section who's like, did he just call Phobos a planet? And I'm like, well, that's what it is in the game, I guess. I don't know. I just call it a planet. Just makes it easier. You want to go to planet Phobos to get the mag Warframe, my dude, whenever I'm explaining it to newer players. I don't really care about being super correct whenever it comes to explaining stuff, but got to defeat 150 enemies in a single mission, scan free Cephalon fragments. That's going to be a pain in the ass, and open free live void relics. So those are things that I should be looking out for. Moving on. We'll do that in the next episode. So thank you guys for hanging out in this episode. We just kind of progressed a little bit up to the Phobos Junction. You guys are super cool for watching this. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button below. And if you want to see more Warframe content from me, hit subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.